everyone. Thanks for joining us on another Kid-Free Weekend. I'm Jeff.
I'm Jennifer.
So I think there might be a few people that are new to the show today. Just wanted to say what it is we're doing. So, of course, this is our show where we kind of talk about whatever we want, and it's all about what we do when the kids are away. And though we do involve the kids a little bit in politics from time to time, maybe we'll watch something on TV together, they're kids. So when they're away, we can talk about all the political stuff we want. So this is a continuation of our Voices of the Blue Wave series, and we got a big one today, didn't we, dear?
We did.
A superstar.
Yes.
This is, and nothing against everybody else, but there's a big reason that we wanted this guest today, and that is Pam Brundige. If you are not familiar with the name, you should look her up on Twitter at Pam_Brundige, Brundige. You can find her there. She is organizing something called the March Against Fascism. What do you think of that, babe?
Gives me goosebumps.
We just got off the phone with her. I got to read you a little something. Tell me your reaction to this. This is when I asked Pam if she would come on the show. I just said, can you do an interview? We'd love to talk to you about the march that you're organizing. And she said, LOL, I can try. I'm not as good with the spoken word as I am with the written word. Please react to that, dear.
Well, she was wonderful with the spoken word. So
crazy, right? I mean, she obviously underestimated herself. So
yes,
I hope this is not the last time that Pam does an interview, whether it's with someone like us on a podcast. Maybe I could see her on the news cycle at some point as this march comes closer and closer, because
I could see her at the podium.
Yeah.
Speaking.
She could inspire a crowd.
Riling everybody up.
Right. Mm-hmm. Totally could. So Pam, please, more Pam. It was a great conversation. We learned a lot about Pam, where she came from, and what's
going on in the fucking country.
The fucking country, and how we're all probably on a list somewhere with the NSA, and of course the March Against Fascism, which she's organizing for August 17th. Hopefully all across the country. There's a bunch of cities set and more to come.
That's not very far away.
No, it really isn't. That's why she's working.
Mm-hmm.
And we plug this again at the end of the episode, but it's marchagainstfascism.org. So look at the description of the episode, because you'll find a link to that in the show notes. You can see where all the cities are, and there's going to be more information about the logistics of who's going where, and a big movement towards Louisville.
Mm-hmm.
Louisville, Kentucky.
Because... Well, let's let people listen.
Right. I'm just excited about that part because Mitch McConnell's a prick.
Spoilers.
But I'm sorry.
God.
But okay. Well, people know that. If you're listening to this, you probably know who Mitch McConnell is. All right. That's it. So let's just cut over to the conversation with Pam.
All right. Here we go.
All right. We are now here. We are welcoming a special guest to the show today. Welcome, Pam Brundige, direct from Twitter to our home. Welcome, Pam.
Thank you, Jeff. And Jennifer.
And Jennifer, of course. Here she is. So I wanted to start, before we talk about the March Against Fascism, which absolutely fascinates me, and I'm so excited you're doing this. I want to learn a little bit more about you, where you came from, what you're all about. So, where did you grow up? What part of the country did you grow up in? And what was it like there in terms of maybe not always politics, but worldviews? What kind of stuff were you exposed to at a younger age?
Well, I was born and raised in Tennessee in a political family. My father was a politician, local politician. He was mayor, and then he was the county judge. But he was extremely connected. He was a behind-the-scenes man. If there was a Democrat elected to the Oval Office, he and Mother always received an invitation to the inaugural ball, and never once did they go, much to her chagrin. And she was still fussing about that on his deathbed. And we were like, Mama, let this go, please.
Whoa, really? He just didn't like to dance or what?
No, he was just strictly in it for the people.
Oh.
He was not about show. He was just like, the important thing is that you get the invite, but he really looked down on politicians who flaunted. He was all about the people.
That's great.
And when he died, the Tennessee Senate drafted a resolution in his honor. That is how well known he was for his political pull. But he was a great man. And so, the community was, well, of course, back then when I was growing up, the South was Democrats. Now, it may have been Dixie Democrats, but it wasn't hardcore like it is now, with the right.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about a time when the Democratic Party was quite a bit different than it was today, though. So more conservative by far. And then there was still a spectrum. I mean, you had, well, I don't know. I mean, I don't know how far back we go here, but like, I think in the 50s or 60s, like Strom Thurmond was still a Democrat and very much for segregation and stuff. So where did your parents fall on the spectrum?
Oh, no, they were liberal. Of course, back then we didn't even say liberal. I just grew up. That's just the way, that's just the way humanity should be. In fact, when I graduated from pharmacy school and was making all this money, I went to my dad and I said, Dad, I'm thinking that maybe I should register, maybe I should vote Republican. What do you think? And he said, well, I'll tell you, Pam, I did the same thing with my dad when I became an adult, and his dad was the county court clerk. And Papa took out a piece of paper from his drawer and a pencil and said, I tell you what, son, you go down to wherever you think the best. And he drew a line down the center, a balance sheet, and he said pros and cons of both parties. And then you'll have your answer at the end of the day. And my dad said, I went down to the creek because that's where I did my best thinking. And I stayed all day. He said, and then at the end of the day, I looked at it and I said, basically, the Democratic Party's not perfect, but it stands for everything that is good and right toward humanity. And that's always been good enough for me. And that was a turning point in my life. I never looked back.
That is so awesome. What a great father you had. Complete opposite from my family. I never had that kind of conversation with my dad. Wow.
And so we grew up, the schools were integrated by the time, well, I was in elementary school when they integrated. But as far back as I can remember, we had people of color over for dinner. They would come, stop by the house. We'd visit on Sunday afternoon. That's what you do in the South. And that's just the way I grew up. So I want to think of it as just compassionate and respectful. We didn't have the term politically correct. I grew up, it's respect. And that's just the way we were raised. So.
Now, in the area you were in specifically, as the schools were integrating and it was okay for, white families and black families to be friends, did you see any firsthand? I mean, on the news, I'm sure you saw plenty, but did you see any of the controversies that surrounded that?
Well, in fact, we had some in our community. It always is, and not everyone was as open as my family as to, friendships and close friendships, but yeah, I saw a lot of it.
When did you turn, maybe what age or what events perhaps, when did you become more of an activist instead of just a young person coming up in the world and just trying to learn? When did you become active?
I was always active in the local chapters and with, fundraising and voter registration. But when I became a hardcore activist was during the BP oil spill. And that was in 2010. And I basically took a year off from work and just devoted my time to the families along the Gulf Coast. It was horrible down here. The media lied. Everyone lied. It was horrible. The fishermen and their families, they were losing everything. Once a day, a fisherman would probably stand on his boat and put a gun to his head.
Ooh.
It was absolutely horrible. Small businesses that had been in, mom and pop businesses forever, went bankrupt. And we were pretty much under BP martial law. They came into every major city on the Gulf Coast and set up headquarters. They would, they rented entire office complexes, like 6, 7-story, just cleaned everyone out. And, I've many times I've been down trying to photograph the oiled wildlife or the beaches, and they took my memory card. That was back before yeah. Oh, it was absolutely horrible.
Well, under what authority? I mean,
it was, and that's what I fear now, because they had big pockets and they hired local law enforcement, on their off time and paid big bucks. And there were people just carted to jail left and right for,
wow.
So this is a real thing. And I was on the Gulf Coast Council with the EPA, so I got to know Lisa Jackson, who was head of the EPA, quite well. But that's what really got me into activism, and I haven't stopped since.
So you said you were a pharmacist?
Yes.
And did you ever go back?
Yes, I did. I'm retired now.
Okay.
Once Trump got into office, it's very, very red down here now, and it's just really hard to survive if you're an outspoken activist.
I bet.
So it's really bad. It comes at you from all angles. So I just said, okay, I will just retire and live off my savings and see what I can do.
Wow.
I mean, this is critical, what we're facing right now. I mean, it's do or die time. I don't think people realize how close we are to losing it all.
Well, we do, and that's why we're here. Well, okay, so when did you, I don't know, let's just say, when did you join Twitter? When did social media start turning to an activist thing for you?
Well, I joined Twitter in 2016, and I never tweeted, never, because I thought I'm way too verbose for this platform. So I was a Facebook junkie. And then the end of August 2018, I just knew I'd run my gamut. And I thought, I'm going to try Twitter, and just see. And oh my gosh, at the end of August 2018, I had 95 followers. And I worked to build that following because I had plenty to say. And I'm a Twitter junkie now. It's hard to go back to Facebook, but I've got to, because in organizing this march, one area that Facebook is advantageous is geography. You can find groups by geography and talk to them, and that's hard to do on Twitter. Even though right now I am going through my 39,000 followers trying to organize by geography.
Oh, wow. Okay. Are you getting some help with that, I hope?
I am.
Okay, good. Facebook is an interesting kind of beast. Now, you seem to have grown up mostly with a progressive or liberal-leaning family. It turns out I have a mix, which I did not know when I was growing up. Babe, what was your experience on Facebook like as things started getting more political? I mean, you had some tension too, didn't you?
Right. I left Facebook long ago because I think it was before Trump, wasn't it? I feel like it was before Trump.
I'm not sure.
But I had been taking a class in college. I think it was my political science class. And I started just becoming more and more aware of everything. And I posted something about, I have family members who are in the Air Force. And I posted something about how we should stop sending our soldiers to places where we don't belong. And that side of the family just blew up at me and they unfollowed me. And I was like, wow, this is not okay. And I didn't there were a couple things that happened, but I eventually just fell away from Facebook completely.
Yeah.
And it's a shame because now my family members don't get to see my kids growing up. But I feel like I don't want myself out there. Everything feels scary these days.
It is scary. And people worry about getting, well, you're on a list. I knew I was on a list in 2010, and the people that told me that was hard. That was back then. You just didn't come up with cell phone numbers. Oh. And when I had reporters calling me on my cell phone, and the NAACP headquarters, national headquarters in Maryland calling me, and I was like, "How did you find me?" And they're like, "You're on the list."
What list?
The list.
What list?
Yeah.
That was the other. That was what I was afraid of also, being on some list.
Oh, I'm sure I'm on a couple lists by now.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure we all are. But it was an activist list, an activist watch list. Well, like I'd have done anything except wave a sign, and speak my mind. But yeah. But Facebook is the community I grew up is so different now, and my family is still there. And of course, when I first went on Facebook, you're friending all of these hometown people that you grew up with, and it just got really bad. Most of them just ignored my post, and I ignored theirs. But it got pretty heated a few times. One guy came on there one night and threatened me, and I was like, I cannot believe this. Okay. Be watching for the PD to come. He worked for the city, and my brother is the mayor. I'm like, this is how fanatical people have gotten. I mean, he was the sole breadwinner of a family of 4. My brother was his boss. But that's what's so scary, is that people have gotten this much into this cult that they lose all reasoning.
Well, now, okay, so let's take that example. What kind of time frame are we talking about? Because Trump has made things worse. I mean, I feel like he's really fanned the flames, but we've been coming to this point for a while now, don't you think?
Right. It was within the last year, and I didn't even bother my brother with it because, of course, being the mayor, he has to be more even keel, and not so outspoken. But he's always supported me. I didn't bother him with it because I was like, oh no, his patience might snap, that I'm staying in the flames back home. But that is how bad it's gotten. So that incident pretty much took me to Twitter, and I've never looked back. I just wish I had joined Twitter, that I had gotten active in Twitter beforehand, because that's where it's happening. And Twitter is the heart of the resistance. I didn't even know the word resistance or resist. I mean, that wasn't familiar with me until August, when I really got into Twitter.
Yeah, agree. Around the same time for me too, I think. I mean, it's been a little while, but it's a totally different world. I joined Twitter to follow a couple celebrities that I thought were funny, and I mean, babe, why'd you join Twitter? I don't even remember now.
Well, I joined when I was going to do sort of a follow my life, because my son has type 1 diabetes, and what it's like living day to day like that.
That's right. And then that all kind of fell away.
Right. I got tired of talking about it because it was depressing to actually talk about it.
Well, now that's an interesting point. Sometimes there are good and bad days on Twitter, and I try to find other things to talk about. Like yesterday, I was tweeting about how socks seemed like a lot of work, so I'm going to wear sandals. But
why?
but Twitter, the news cycle that comes up on Twitter, you have these new articles trending every couple hours, and Trump has done another awful thing, and there's another state banning abortion, and that can get a kind of depressing. How do you keep your spirits up, Pam?
I am so focused that I think, and I wrote like a 4 or 5 part tweet a couple of weeks ago about where are you now emotionally as opposed to a year ago. I have seen this coming since the get-go. Maybe not January 2017 when he was inaugurated, but soon thereafter, the cards have methodically been laid on the table. And after the election, I canceled my satellite, didn't have cable. Now we have, I have Hulu and Netflix, and we stream, Amazon Prime, we stream. But I was so furious at the talking heads because I thought that they helped elect Trump. Instead of talking about the platform, they were always talking about his antics. And so I subscribed to the Washington Post, New York Times, several, credible newspapers and online journals, and I feel so much more informed. I don't have TV. I don't have that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was laying these cards on the table a year and a half ago. I've seen them. It's just all so. In fact, before he even declared the national emergency, I said, just wait. And, I was tweeting. I had the tweet. He's going to declare it because he needs the power. And then when he refused to release the national emergency, even when Congress came up with more money than he had asked for that wall, and he vetoed it, I said, see? And that's where I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop, is when he is going to declare martial law. He's already locked everyone out by closing the 21 immigration offices. Now he's going to lock us in. And, people say, one thing I tweet about every 2 or 3 weeks, just a courtesy reminder, if your passport has expired or due to expire within the next year, renew it now.
Uh-oh.
Because that will be the next agency he closes. And I feel that deep within my gut. And people say, no, I'm going to stay and fight. And I said, well, fine, we all are. But let that be your choice and not because it's mandated. And that's just a self-empowering thing. So.
Do you think that he's actually smart enough, or is it the direction of others that are making him do the things that he's doing?
Oh, absolutely. He's not. Trump he was chosen to play this role, and he's playing it brilliantly because he is the master of mass distraction. I mean, talk about weapons of mass destruction. He is the master of mass distraction.
He really is.
And what I keep urging, and this is what's happened, is that we become normalized. I knew with the strike on Iran that he was going to change his mind. I knew with the 2,000 family, the raid on the 2,000 families, the ICE raid, that he was going to change his mind. It's not that he's changing his mind, but you can go back through hundreds and hundreds of issues, and it's push, pull back, push, pull back, and then it's boom.
Right.
And that's how we have become normalized. If you're not really paying attention, you become normalized to it. Mm-hmm. And that's how they have accelerated through this.
Well, and part of it is probably also, I imagine at least, testing the waters too. First, we'll see how they react to a possible strike on Iran. And then we'll see how the people act when we do a little border skirmish. And then we'll see how people react when we do the next big thing. But
if you've
really
ever really studied Russian disinformation, I mean, they are the masters at it. In fact, the CIA and the British, all of the Interpol agencies will tell you that 60% is what if in their surveillance work, undercover work, if 60% of it pans out to be true, they consider that a victory. But with Russia, if 60% panned out to be true, it is like everything in here is true. Everything is, because they are the masters of disinformation. And Trump has studied under these people. If people who have never gone back and actually read the Steele dossier, I would, I urge them to, because it's not that it gives you details that you need to know, but it gives you a ground for that overall picture of how deep this runs and how long it's been orchestrated. And that's what I'm so scared about.
Well, half the country would say that the Steele dossier was fabricated. Mm-hmm. Like it was just full of nonsense, right?
Exactly. But to me, Christopher Steele is a hero. And he's a hero. And actually, but that's my opinion. It gives you the foundation of how deep this runs. And if you look at what's going on in the rest of the world, fascism, democracy is a dying animal.
Yeah.
And America, once we fall, the dominoes are going to start falling. They're going to really start tumbling over fast. People are talking about becoming an expat to Canada. And I say, no. I mean, that's probably Canada and Australia and Great Britain are the three that are going to fall next. They have established fascists in their government and have since the early 90s.
Yeah.
So when we say we're out to save America, we're really out to save the world. Because as goes America, goes the rest of the world.
Well, so since you were mentioning the Steele dossier, that is the big contributing force that kicked off the Mueller investigation, right? So at this point, I'd like to know where you, Pam Brundige, not anyone else, not Nancy Pelosi, where do you stand if you could call the shots on starting an impeachment inquiry?
Okay. If I were calling the shots, and this is very controversial.
Yeah.
I believe that she's doing the right thing.
Yeah.
I hope she's doing the right thing, because let's face it, anyone who might watch the Michael Cohen hearing, anyone who watched the Barr hearing, they could stand up and, the opposition could stand up and say, 5 million people saw Donald Trump murder someone in the middle of Fifth Avenue, just like he said. And they'd say, oh no, that's fake news. Okay, right now we know that we do not have, the 21 senators to convict, to vote, to remove. Also, but it's not just that. It's the fact that this is a maniac. Trump is a maniac. And if you push him too hard, he is going to shut everything down, because he and Miller have effectively gutted the government. There's something like 277 out of 600 and something departments that are vacated. They have, right. They have taken control of the government. And this is a coup. It's been a slow moving coup, but it could become a hostile coup in the blink of an eye. And I think Pelosi knows that. Now, I'm speaking if I were Pelosi.
Hey, yeah, but that's what I wanted to know. What do you think? I mean, it's a gamble either way. If you impeach him, then the gamble is, can putting more of this stuff on TV instead of just in the Mueller report that no one wants to read, will that help sway people into realizing that we are all being conned by a criminal? Or will it have like the Clinton effect? Because he won't get kicked out of office. We don't have the votes in the Senate, right? So you're just taking a gamble on what the trial will do to sway America.
And right now, people keep comparing it to Nixon and Watergate. Oh my gosh, this is nothing like Nixon and Watergate. And the mindset, the people are so, when you have Fox News, quite a different subject, but the people are they're so poisoned. They're so brainwashed. It's almost like we've had some kind of paradigm shift. I feel like I wake up and I go, was that a nightmare? Or I feel like I inadvertently stepped over into a parallel universe, because this is unreal. But you're not going to change their minds right now. You're not, I don't read the MAGA posts, but every once in a while, there will be one drift in the timeline or someone tries to follow me. And I saw the other day, well, it wasn't the other day, it was around March during tax season, March or April. And someone posted, have y'all noticed that our taxes have gone up since Nancy Pelosi became Speaker of the House? And it had like 5,000 likes.
Right. It's crazy.
Gosh.
I mean, how do you talk to that? This is a mindset that nothing is going to sway their minds. So I think by not pushing his buttons and having a hostile coup, now that leads us to the point. I mean, I'm going to make a prediction here. If things keep going as they are, he will dissolve Congress. Congress will be dissolved by next year at this time. And I believe the government will only be executive and military. Now, that's if things keep going as they are. And, of course, the big question is, will the military go along with them? I'm inclined to say yes, because I felt it. Remember that weekend when he had the military at Camp David? That was a turning point. Huh. I mean, it was like how many generals had resigned right before then? All of the responsible people he has successfully wooed the military, I believe. He's politicized it. For one thing, they already broke military code when they went to the border before everyone knew they went to the border early. That was a partisan mission. I mean, that should have never. And if you've ever read any of the Inside the Pentagon with the anonymous sources, they know this. But so what's your opinion of that? Has he wooed the military?
Well, you might be right about the people at the top, but it seems like the military itself is pretty evenly split, like the rest of America, I think.
Right.
I think.
And the people at the top are the only people that matter. I mean, it really is. And I don't want to think that. But, the military is a very different mindset. They have their chain of command. And I don't know. I just don't know. But that's the big question. And that's certainly not any disrespect toward our military. I'm just worried. That's all.
All the people running the show have left that actually had any moral compass.
Right.
Exactly. And that's what I'm basing it on.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe some left and I believe most of them were forced to leave.
Mm.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And the thing is, like, we're not talking about people that we could sit down and have a nice conversation with about, like, well, I mean, gay marriage is okay, right? I mean, these are probably people that we disagree with on most major issues. But it's almost like, I would actually equate it to the stuff Joe Biden just got in trouble for, right? Talking about how there used to be civility, how you used to be able to disagree with someone who was a horrible person that wanted, to oppress black people and put them back in chains or whatever, but you could still get some legislation done on something else, right? And it seems like those people are gone, maybe on both sides. I don't even know anymore. I mean, with Mitch McConnell running the show in the Senate, he's been a problem for a long time now.
But, think back to when Trump first went into office, the better part of that first year, he and Mitch McConnell were bitter enemies.
Yeah, he wasn't the only one. There were plenty of people that had lined up as anti-Trump, and somehow, I don't know how that stuff turned around.
Well, do you follow Jennifer Kahn?
I don't
on
think
Twitter?
So.
Oh my gosh, you need to.
Okay.
Because she can tell you exactly. I mean, she is the expert on election fraud. She's an attorney but she can tell you exactly when Lindsey Graham, Bob Corker, and Jeff Flake played 18 holes of golf with Donald Trump, and they were all bitter enemies of Trump. And after they came off the golf course, and it's all to do with an unencrypted emails that the Russians got, and they all turned their allegiance. Bob Corker was the only senator who voted against, and this is what got me during the Cohen hearings, not Cohen, but Barr, when instead of questioning him, all of the GOP senators were talking about, we cannot let this happen again. We cannot, we've just got to make sure we have election integrity. Whereas I remember July 2016, the House had passed a $3 million bill for cybersecurity to protect the local machines, and compute. And the only person who voted against it in the Senate, well, GOP, was Bob Corker. So I'm like, people forget these things. I don't. I don't. I'm like, y'all already made sure in 2016 that it was going to be tampered with. That's why when people mention I cannot even get into 2020, because 2020 is, if we don't get this solved, 2020 is a joke. It's going to be like third world countries or dictatorship countries, the ballot box stuffing. I mean, Ivanka's already patented the machines,
right,
the voting machines in China. It just goes on and on. And Mitch McConnell won't even bring to the floor the cybersecurity pact, won't even bring it for a vote. And if you'll recall, about 9 or 10 months ago, the only 3 world leaders who voted against, who declined to join into the global cybersecurity pact, were Trump, Putin, and Mr. Bad Haircut, Kim.
Yeah, I remember that. Mm-hmm. It was like, gee, that's kind of telling, isn't it? 2 of the scariest regimes around, and then Trump.
Yeah, it's like, why are people even, when they say we have to have a blue tsunami, we have to take the Senate, and I'm like, that's, to me, that is not even, if this doesn't get handled now, it all is lost.
Well, yeah, and I think a big part of the success in 2018 was voter turnout. I mean, you have to be able to turn out such big numbers, right, that manipulating the machines isn't going to be enough to trick people.
Exactly. But I think that it's going to be so manipulated this time, and they've gotten away with so much with that I just believe all is lost. And I'm a little disappointed in the senators who are running, because in January, first of the year, they were all announcing. Mm-hmm. And I was like, can you not just hold off? And I went back and I looked when Hillary announced, and it was like April 13th. And I was like, can you not just hold off a few months and take care of business? And maybe they know it's a lost cause in the Senate. I don't know.
Well, it kind of is. I mean, if McConnell won't bring anything up for a vote, what else do they have to do? I guess running for president is as good of an activity. It keeps you busy.
Well, they need to talk about that.
Well, I think they are, somewhat.
But there's more on issues. I mean, I hate to say this, but every time I see any of the House, the leaders, Pelosi or Schiff or Cummings, any of them, and then any of the Senate talk, just bring up this everyday issue of, like when Pelosi, and I have immense respect for her, do not get me wrong, immense respect. But when they came back from their 2-week vacation, and the first thing they did was meet with him about infrastructure budget, I was like, we're dying here. We're dying. I guess they have to go through the motions, and she is no fool. And I keep thinking there is a dark hero that's going to emerge. Now, I never, ever thought that Mueller was going to pull us through. I never looked at him as the hero. I've never counted on NYSD being the hero. But if anything pulls us out, there's some dark horse hero that's going to emerge. And I have my thoughts on who that is, but everyone laughs at me.
Well, we won't.
Okay.
If you don't want to jinx it, you can keep it to yourself. But if you want to tell us, I would love to listen.
I've tweeted it. I've tweeted it several times. I say don't count out Rod Rosenstein.
Hmm.
Don't count him out. Everybody says, oh, well, he showed his colors when he stood up for Barr. Okay, but everyone forgets how hard he fought to protect the Mueller investigation. I mean, it was brought before Congress to impeach him. But what really did it for me was his resignation letter. That was so over the top.
Yes, it was.
It was like, oh, I remember all the times you made me laugh. Trump doesn't have a sense of humor. He's never cracked a joke.
Well, I don't think he wrote that letter. I expect Stephen Miller wrote it because Stephen Miller is a terrible writer that doesn't understand nuance.
Right.
And just had Rod sign it.
I do believe that Bob Mueller, the biggest mistake that they've made, Trump and the GOP Senate, is in criticizing Mueller, because Mueller pulled off something in a 14-month investigation that is impossible, but he pulled it off. Not one single leak ever came out of that investigation in 14 months. Not one. People are loyal to him. And someone is going to step up. I'm hoping. Because this is our last hope. And I don't even know if it'll do any good.
Right.
Because we've lost all our checks and balances. Congress is our last check and balance. I mean, because you can't look at the courts. They're not going to decide any of this stuff. And plus he stacked them. But Congress is our last. This is it. And if we don't get, 21 that we need?
Yeah,
21?
Something like that.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's going to be a big issue in 2020, but
if we make it till then.
So let's talk about what's happening between now and then, because this is a big part of why I wanted to talk to you today, which is that word that you mentioned once or twice earlier, fascism. Now, what does that word mean to you? Because a lot of people have a lot of different definitions for that.
Okay, to me it means a centralized government that is autocratic. I mean, it's autocracy. It is, and fascism, really the correct term for what we're seeing is neo-fascism, but it's like, that is just really stretching it. I mean, fascism is like, okay, we're going to educate people on this, but the neo, because not all fascist groups are particularly racist. We're really talking about Nazis, but out of respect for that word is not embraced so well by people who have Holocaust, survivors, or their family members were, but actually that's what it is.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I'm Jewish and I've fought with people about using that word because I'm like, there are actual Nazis. Like, some of them we may be like, well, the way that these guys are acting are Nazi-esque or something, but there are people that still affiliate themselves as modern day Nazis. And it's okay to say that because, well, it's true. I mean, I don't want to couch those words. I don't care about people using the word concentration camps right now either, because we're one step away from the death camps, which is different from the concentration camps. Like, what are we doing? We have to pay attention to this. And if it means using shocking words that will jar you, then use the shocking words, damn it.
Okay. And do you not feel that the people who perished in those camps would not be the first, if they could, just stand up and say, yes, let this never happen again. Use those words. This could never happen again. I mean, I believe they would be all for it.
And in America, we led the charge on defeating. Yeah, it took us a long time, but when we finally got involved, we led the charge on defeating Hitler and the Nazis and freeing people in the death camps. It's so nuts to think that that's where we've come now, is where we're dipping our toe into that water.
It's scary. It is just, it's so scary. And who will they come for next?
Right. We opened the door for Trump. There are a lot worse leaders out there that now can get in.
Exactly. Oh, yeah. For the first time ever in history, America made the list of the most dangerous places for journalists to live and report from. Mm-hmm. And now, I believe the journalists will be the first. And then I believe it'll be the people of color. Well, and I think that we outspoken resistors will be thrown in there with some, with no matter what color skin we have.
Sure, political dissidents. I mean, that's us for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And we're talking to you, so if we weren't on a list before, we're on a list now. But
Exactly.
I'm going to wear that with pride.
Well, yesterday, I think it was yesterday, I posted, I said, who will be next? And of all the comments I got, several said you. I mean, me. Yeah, you. and they were resistors. They weren't, they weren't trolls. And I went, oh, yeah, I do stand out. But I do wear it with pride.
Yeah.
There are some things that are worth dying for, and this is absolutely because we've seen the best years. I've seen the best years of America, and we have screwed it up by letting this ooze in, and now we owe it to future generations.
Yeah. We have kids. You, Pam, do you have kids? Grandkids?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
We got to try to turn this ship around, and hopefully it's not too late, but some days it does feel like it is. Well, to that end, I mean, you're trying to make a bold statement here with something that you're putting together called the March Against Fascism.
Exactly.
So how did that get started? Have you done anything like this before?
I've organized things on local levels, nothing on this scale. When I first started, my idea was a 1 million resistor march on Washington. And then that got kind of taken up by another group, which they brought me in. And I just saw it wasn't going so well. And I started to rethinking it. So I left the group. I told them, I said, I won't do anything on DC. But I started thinking about it. I said, okay, I went to the Women's March in 2017, the day after it was inaugurated. There have been 3 major marches on DC since he's been inaugurated. The Women's March,
Mm-hmm.
1 million women flooded the streets of DC. What has happened? What has that resulted in? Well, women's rights. I mean,
right, yeah, it hasn't been great for women. Whew.
Okay, and then the second was March for Our Lives. 500,000 to 1 million people flooded the streets of DC. What has resulted in that? Okay, Florida has changed no gun laws. In fact, what have they done in the state where these children were massacred? They're arming teachers with guns. Okay, so mark that off the list for the results. And the third was the march on the Science March. And, science, that's just a fable. That never happened, with this administration. So I started thinking nothing in D.C. Then I started thinking the people who are worst or most affected by the economy are the people who would march. And either they can't afford to go to D.C. or they can't afford to take off work. We're never going to get 1 million resistors there. So then I said, why hasn't it worked on massive marches on D.C.? That's because, in my mind, the Senate's looking and saying, well, we don't know. That's from your state. Most of those people are from your state. I said, well, let's take it to these senator states to where there is no doubt that we're marching on you. And because I do believe the Senate is our last chance. And so it started off in my mind, the Red States March. And then it drifted into the March Against Fascism. And that's my goal, is to educate people and to hopefully gain national attention that we're talking to you, Mitch McConnell. We're talking to you, Susan Collins. We're talking to you, and so on down the line.
How many states are you currently actively organizing in?
Well, because of lack of funds, these events cost so much to put on, and people don't realize how much. Okay, I never realized, because usually you don't organize marches in different states like this. Okay, first of all, it's the permit fee, and that varies. The cheapest one I think has been $75, and the most expensive is $450. Wow. But then every city requires event liability insurance, and that ranges anywhere from $400 to $1,000.
I see. It's starting to make sense now. Yep.
Right, and then Of course, you've got rental for sound, for stages, podiums, sound speaker rental, sound system rental. But what was the biggest shock to me is that all of these cities so far, okay, you think that police protection is just included in our taxes, right?
Well, generally speaking, yeah. Is that not the case for a protest?
No, they require police protection, but the organization is required to pay the overtime for the police. Say in Louisville, it's going to cost us approximately $2,000 to pay the Louisville PD the overtime.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's bad.
So this, these events run anywhere from $3,000 to $5,000 each. So that is just a mammoth task to undertake. What we're hoping is that, of course, we're hoping for donations through our store. Mm-hmm. The store, which is marchagainstfascism.org/store. But, those, the T-shirts and the mugs and all that, they don't bring in a lot of revenue. That's just more like that's the cheapest advertisement we can get, if you wear these shirts. But hopefully what will happen is that these marches, these gatherings just kind of spring up across the country, without the permit, without the, as they do. So we're hoping on the end. In the meantime, I'm putting the primary focus on Louisville.
Mitch McConnell's territory.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Not that we think that it will change his mind, but we want America and the rest in Kentucky, which his approval rating is down to 13% now there.
Holy crap.
But, yeah, that was the last, I read that poll last week.
Is someone running against him, though?
There is, Jason Cox is, and then there is a lady who has not officially announced, so I won't say her name. No one serious so far. Jason, I'm sure, is serious, but he's not as big of a name as maybe some others. But we're hoping to get so right now, I ran a poll about 3 or 4 months ago and said, how far would you travel on a bus to protest against Mitch McConnell? Well, of course, then it was like forever and ever and ever, amen. Now it's like, on a bus. But I have organized meetings with not protesters, but resistors from Tennessee. I laid out all the cost for them. And I said, or we can have group charter buses and go to Louisville. They voted, go to Louisville. So all of Tennessee is going to Louisville. Ohio, all of Ohio is going to Louisville. Now I have volunteers from Madison, Wisconsin to organize buses to go to Louisville.
Hey, Madison, I went to school there, so I'm just going to cheer for a second. Woohoo! Okay,
good. Sorry. So I'm going to help. I'm going to get with you after this and get you to make some contacts and get on these buses.
I might actually have a couple, so let's talk about that. But go on. We'll talk about that after.
Illinois, I have all of these, lists of, because, I make the tag list every day and I'm always looking at where these people are from. Illinois, well, Illinois wants their own protest in Chicago. And I'm like, you're a blue state surrounded by red. Why? Right. When it's only 4.5 hours to Louisville. So hopefully they're going to get Kansas City. That one's kind of fallen by the wayside. Everyone wants to volunteer to organize these until they see the mammoth red tape and the cost involved.
Yeah.
But we do have permits. The permits we have secured are Louisville, Austin, Denver, and Portland, Maine. And working on others as we speak. I'm sure there's going to be an LA event now. And I'm also sure there's going to be San Bernardino. And one is only because our coordinator, Steve Walker, is so involved with Indivisible and other they're used to protesting. They don't need a permit. They just gather 300 or 400 people and have a march, and then hopefully maybe in Northern California, San Jose. And the reason we chose San Jose, if we can get the funding, is because 15,000 women turned out there for the Women's March. Yeah, my first thought was San Francisco, but now that once you start researching it, San Francisco is kind of a thing of the past with its protest. San Jose, these other places are. So there's a lot involved, and I have a great team. Not a lot of people, but they're so dedicated. But we are working around the clock on this.
That's great. Yeah, you were telling me before we started recording that it's like an 18-plus hour day for you most days.
Oh, it is. Absolutely, it is. It is.
Well, I hope you get some sleep once in a while.
I don't get much, but it's like people are always saying, when do you sleep? And I said, well, I do. I sleep for like 2 or 3 hours during the day, and then I might catch another nap 2 hours, around 7 or something. But we can't afford to sleep right now. It's like if you've raised children, which you have, Jennifer, I'm sure that you can look back on this and relate. You know how after they get older, you look back on those baby days and you think, how did I survive? I remember, like I'm getting ready to go to work and I'm getting, my baby girl ready and I'm feeding her, pancakes, and all of a sudden she just, turns the whole bowl on top of her head, or I look and she's gotten into my makeup and she has lipstick all over her face, and you're thinking, or they have a really bad poopy diet, and you're thinking, I'm not going to get to work, I'm not going to get to the sitter's house, but you just do it. Mm-hmm. You just get through it and you make it. And I've always said that's something instilled from some higher power, because otherwise we couldn't. This is the same way. It's like, I know I will look, however it turns out, I will look back one day and say, how did I do it? But you're driven by some kind of force that takes care of you while you're doing this. And I truly believe that, or else I'd be falling out right now during this interview. I would.
Well, I guess you have rest to look forward to after we get Trump out of office, after we get McConnell out of office, hopefully in 2020, right?
Right.
We can do it, right? We can do this.
We can do it.
Yes.
And it's going to have to happen. The American people have to snap awake. And I believe we will. I don't know how much we're going to have to go through. We're a spoiled nation. Mm-hmm. Well, this could never happen to us. We take so much for granted. But you're on Twitter. Can you not see? And you see, there's a lot of negativity right now within the resistance community. There's a lot of infighting. And I don't want to dwell on that. The only reason I'm even bringing it up is because I believe that people are now realizing how serious this is. And that pent-up fear is making them act out in ways that they normally wouldn't. Well, I'm not as scared now as I was a year. Well, I'm as scared, but I was terrified a year ago because everyone was calling me a conspiracy theorist. They don't call me that anymore. But it was a burden. I felt like I was scared for you. I was frightened for you. I was frightened for all of us. But now it's like, okay. But I do think times are tense, and I think that the optimists they're not losing hope, but they're seeing the reality of this.
Yeah. Well, I think Trump was running against Hillary, and we all saw him as a clown, and the Republican Party was done for. They were imploding, and they kind of were. Yeah. They had all this infighting, right? And everybody hated Trump, and Trump was calling everybody names, and then one way or another, and it might all be stuff that Russia has of, emails that they got a hold of. They have something on a lot of these guys, but they all fell in line. And I think that's what, now that, the abortion thing that's coming, we might go to war, as these things start becoming reality, he's less of a clown, isn't he?
Well, and that's it. And I wrote journalists, and I would email them, and I would contradict them on Twitter when they'd say, he's stupid. He's so stupid. And to me, that was the worst thing that the press and the media could have started labeling, because he's not smart, but it minimalized a situation there's nothing minimal about it. He is playing the role he's supposed to be playing, and he's doing it great. He's not making these decisions, but people always thought, oh, everyone will realize how stupid he is, instead of realizing how entangled this whole web is. So, yeah, and he's crazy. He's insane, but wasn't Hitler insane? Wasn't Mussolini insane? I mean,
absolutely.
Yeah. At least, I'll look at Hitler and say, at least he had a dog. I mean, Trump didn't even, is the first, president to ever not have a dog in the White House? And I feel, I'm glad he doesn't. The poor thing would probably get kicked. But I think it's all because someone might pay more attention to the dog than him.
Of course.
He is that narcissistic.
All right. Well, I think we missed one thing about the march, and then we'll wrap things up here. We didn't talk about when, because you're organizing this march to happen, hopefully, in a bunch of different places on one day, which would definitely help capture media attention. Right. So what are we talking about there?
It's Saturday, August 17th.
Okay.
Sorry. Yes. It's all going to be the same day. The reason for that date is that it was the last Saturday before college football season begins. And I knew there would be no way to coordinate these marches across these cities, when we would never be able to get permits to march when thousands of people were flowing in to attend a football game. So it's going to be hot. But the other option was to wait until January. And I don't think democracy will wait until January. I truly think this is our last hurrah. When I say last hurrah, people are starved to lift their voices, to say, because we feel helpless. Do you not feel helpless in a sense?
Well, sometimes. This makes us feel better.
Yeah, it does. And if nothing else, and I don't want to say if nothing else, hopefully it will make a difference. But this is very important for the resistance community. Well, when you get down to it, what are marches for? They're self-empowering. Mm-hmm. People have to know that no matter how this turns out, the resistance will continue, and that there are millions of others out there like us. It will continue, even if the worst case scenario happens. We're never going to give up, right? Hopefully we're going to nip this problem in the bud before 2020, but we will never, ever, I will never give up. And I think that's most of the resistance that's hung in there with us.
Yeah, I can't see myself shutting up anytime soon. You, babe?
No.
I mean, this is too important. We have kids to take care of, that's right. So for people interested in finding out more about the March Against Fascism, you mentioned the website before, marchagainstfascism.org, not .com. .org,
right.
.org.
Right.
And there is a store there, which helps a little bit with fundraising as well as spreading the word. So we're going to go do our shopping. Right, babe?
Right. But, like yesterday, the shirts and several items were 40% off with the promo code, which made them $12. And that comes up every few days, the 40% off. So really just watch for it. And I will DM you, and you can put it out there too.
Okay.
Because how can you buy a T-shirt for $12.06 anywhere?
Look, we will definitely have some.
I have spent over $1,000 in the store because, to me, this is my baby. But if people want more information, they can email us at maf081719. That's the date of the march at gmail.com. And we will direct you to the local coordinators. If you're interested in coordinating an event, DM me directly or email that. And I believe, we have a great, great group. And like in Austin, we had to get a state representative to sponsor us, and he did right off the bat. Okay, do you want to hear the funny thing? Is that New York City, Manhattan, denied our permit. I mean, what is the city who hates Trump more than anything? But what we're doing, but I never envisioned Manhattan. I never did. I took the advice, and we got it. We had a lawyer from Manhattan who is a staunch resistor pilot. So he was, and had ties. And he says, I'm not believing this. But that's the way it turned out. But, I never envisioned Manhattan as being the venue anyway. I always saw it as either Brooklyn or the Bronx. How you see the parades and people pouring out from their apartment buildings to join in? Mm-hmm. And that's where we're going to try next. We are going to take this to the Big Apple, the city who hates the native son one way or another. We will find a borough that will accept us. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, and as cities get added, as the organizing continues, the website marchagainstfascism.org is the place to start.
It certainly is. I mean, we have Phoenix is definitely going to be a venue. Mm-hmm. LA will definitely be a venue, and not because, but just because the people on the West Coast are so isolated. I mean, it's like you can't travel thousands of miles, and LA always does a good march. Believe it or not, Salt Lake City is going to be a venue.
Ooh, that's a big get.
It is a big, but the inside scoop is that the Mormon community is not happy with Trump. And okay, look at the two senators they have there. They have been a little bit wishy-washy. I believe Romney wants to do the right thing. I do, yes. But he always wimps out. I don't believe he's compromised. Do you?
I don't know. A guy like that, I'd find it hard to believe that you could find something compromising on him that would be like a media embarrassment.
He wants to do the right thing. And then Mike Lee, he has gone up against Trump. He voted actually against the veto, for the national emergency. So we're going into New York, Salt Lake City, and of course Louisville, Austin, Denver, and then New England, Portland, Maine. Our plans are to organize, because New England's pretty blue. So we're organizing buses to go from Vermont, New Hampshire, Connecticut, Massachusetts, all up to speak to Susan Collins.
Hey.
North Carolina, South Carolina. We haven't gotten very far on the South Carolina. It's so red that it's just so hard to get the group interested. So North Carolina had voted to go to South Carolina, but now we're kind of reassessing that situation. So North Carolina either is going to have their own or they're going to Louisville. Atlanta, I would love to see Atlanta have one. We've kind of lost ground with that, but it's just so much, it's just so much to manage right now. Mm-hmm. South Florida, there's going to be one in South Dade County. And the coordinator behind that, his Twitter name is, it's either Hugh Dim or Dim Hugh. I think it's Dim Hugh. And he is the president of the Democratic local chapter down there. So we're going to Florida to the one stronghold. And then Alabama, they want their own, but we're trying to talk them into going to Louisville. We really want Louisville to be a huge impact.
Oh, I agree. That would be, it would be incredible to see the streets of Louisville just clogged with protesters and Mitch McConnell having to sort of answer for it. He won't.
Exactly.
But at least be embarrassed by it.
And there's nothing, and I want to say this to the listeners. I rode on a bus to the Women's March from Mobile, Alabama, which was exactly 999 miles from Mobile. Our bus broke down. So we left at noon on Friday, did not get back until Sunday night. We didn't have showers in that time. We changed clothes. It was all women on the bus. We brushed our teeth at bus stops. And it was the most incredible experience. There's nothing like a group. I mean, you just forget all about the luxuries and the conveniences, because there's an enthusiasm and vigor. And of course, now things have gotten so worse that I can't imagine how wonderful it would be with like-minded people to ride a bus with 50 or 60. And we're not talking about school buses. I mean, you know, right. You'll have chargers to keep your phone charged and all of that, and music. So I hope that the FEPR will, because this is it. This is it, people. This is it. And I'm going to tear up talking about it. This is it. We have to do this.
I agree. Thank you so much for talking to us, Pam. I can't wait to see how this turns out. Maybe after the march and we give you a little time to rest, maybe we can talk again and you can tell us, because we'll be here hopefully in Los Angeles as that march forms, but we're not going to make it to Kentucky, I must admit. So we want to hear how things go out there and just the overall impact that you saw as this finally comes to fruition.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for giving me the airtime. I appreciate you so much.
It's been our pleasure, Pam.
Yeah.
And on Twitter, of course, if you are not yet familiar somehow with Pam, you can find her at Pam_Brundige. That's BRUNDIGE. And we'll post a link to that and marchagainstfascism.org in the show notes. So just look at the description of the episode and you should find links there to both Pam and the website and the store where you could buy some gear to both help spread the word and drop a couple bucks into the coffers for this organization.
Thank you so much. And bless you. Thank you.
Bless you too, Pam. You're doing great work. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye. Bye, Jennifer.
Bye.
Wow. You up for recording the intro real quick?
All right.
Sometimes I postpone these and I regret that later.
What?
I said sometimes I postpone the
Let's do
intro and then I'm like, oh.
Oh, we don't need these now.
Oh yeah, we don't need. I knew there was something. Something changed. All right. That worked. My slickness amazes you, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.